All right, today we're going to talk about sections 11.1 and 11.2, which are talking about circumference and area of circles, and then dealing with partial circumference and partial area. So first off, reviewing what the circumference of a circle formula is. 2 pi r, or pi d, with r being the radius and d being the diameter. So we're talking about the circumference. We're saying what is the distance around an entire circle. So how far is it around that entire circle? We've talked about measures of arcs, but length of arcs would be if we had a circle and we wanted to know how far it was around only a sliver of that circle. And so in order to do that, we need to take the circumference of the circle. So the length of an arc is going to be equal to the circumference of the circle times the measure of that arc over 360, because the whole circle is 360 degrees. So that little sliver, however much that measure is, we'll divide that by 360. And that'll be the fraction of the length of the arc. Similar concept with area. First off, the area of a circle is pi r squared. And then if I wanted to figure out the area of a sector of a circle, so if I wanted to know what the area was of that whole piece of the circle, then the area of the sector would be the fraction, so the measure of 360 multiplied by the area of the entire circle. So it's a partial area of the circle and a partial circumference there. So again, just remembering our formulas. And these are just writing them out in words. So we have the measure of the arc is the number of degrees it occupies. So we could have measure of ED could be 90 degrees, 70 degrees, whatever we're talking about. And then it will take that fraction to allow us to do the circle circumference. And then the sector of the circle, this would be the sector. And then the area of that would be the fraction of the area of the circle. So what do some of those look like? Find the circumference and area of a circle with the diameter of 10. So first off, if the diameter is 10, and then that means that the radius is 5. So if I wanted to do the circumference, substitute 5 in, and our circumference would be 10 pi. If I wanted to do the area, remembering the area formula is pi r squared. So plug in 5 for my radius, square the 5, and I get 25 pi. For number 2, we're talking about a partial circle. So if I wanted to think about AB as a partial, and it's telling me that it is 1/4 of the circle. So that tells me that means that this measure here is 90 degrees. So again, that answers that first part because the measure is 1/4 of the circle, so that gives me that it's 90 degrees. The length then, how long is it? If I were to walk along the circle from A to B, I'm dealing with a partial circle, so I need to deal with a fraction of the circumference. And that fraction is 1/4. So it's 1/4 of my circumference of 2 pi r. And with the diameter of 8, that means my radius is 4. So this is 1/4 of 2 pi times 4, which is a fourth of 8 pi. So my length is 2 pi. The area of the sector for AB, so now in order to do the area of the sector, from A to B. It's this entire region. Finding the area. It is a part of the circle. It is 1/4 of the area of the circle. So 1/4 of my pi 4 squared, which is 1/4 of 16 pi, which is 4 pi. For number 3, finding the area of the shaded region, figuring out how much of the area of the circle is shaded. If this circle is broken up into 4 regions, I have 3 of them shaded. So I have 3/4 of the circle shaded. And because I'm talking about area, 3/4 of the circle's area. And this distance here from the center to here, we just reviewed circles, tells me that that is a radius of 8. So 3/4 of pi 8 squared, which is 3/4 of 64 pi. So that is 48 pi. Find the coordinates of the circle, the center of the circle here. So if these are on the diameter, then my point O is in the middle, which is my midpoint. So I'm going to add up my x's and divide by 2, and add up my y's and divide by 2. And it tells me that my point O is equal to -2, 1. So some examples that we'll go through now. The circumference of a circle, remembering that that is 2 pi r. If a wheel has a radius of 6 feet, we're just 6. So a radius of 6, that means that the circumference of that wheel is 2 pi times 6, which means it is 12 pi. To go around the wheel one time, it would be 12 pi units. It wants to know if the wheel, how far will it travel if it rotates 100 times. So that wheel is going to go around in a circle 100 times. So I need to take my circumference, which is 12 pi, and multiply that by 100. And that distance would be 1200 pi. Remembering what the length of an arc is, that's the fraction of the circumference. So the measure over 360 times 2 pi r. How long? Length meaning how long. How long is it if there is a 40-degree arc in a circle with a 10-foot radius? First of all, how much of the circle is 40 degrees? Well, the whole circle is 360 degrees, and I'm dealing with 40 of that. So that tells me that I am dealing with 1/9 of the circle's circumference. So now I need to do the circumference. I got the 1/9 because 40 over 360 reduces to 1/9. And then 2 pi times 10 for the radius. So that multiplies to 20. Divide that by 9, and then keep the pi. Perimeter on the outside of this figure with a square with a semicircle on top. So we have straight edges here, and because those are parts of a square, I have 12 and 12 and 12. So my straight edges give me 36. The distance around that semicircle is 1/2, because it's a semicircle, half of a circle. So that is half of my circumference, which is half of 12 pi. So the total perimeter is 36 plus 6 pi, and I cannot add those together. This one is a rectangle with semicircles on each end. So I'll take care of my straightaways first. I have 400 on the top and 400 on the bottom. So I have a total of 800. On either end, I have a half circle and a half circle. Those half circles form a whole circle because they're the same size. So it's going to be plus 2 pi r with a radius of 50. So I get 100 pi. Figure inside is a square, so this tells me that 6 is going to be my straightaways on each side. So that gives me 24. And because this is a square, I get a right angle. This is part of a circle. 1/4 of another circle, 1/4 of a circle, 1/4 of a circle. They are each 1/4 of a circle, which means together all 4 of those regions form one circle because they are 4 quarter circles. So then I'm going to need to take my radius of 2, circumference of a circle, 2 pi times r, and I get 4 pi. Perimeter of this is an inside smaller circle and an outside circle as well. I have a straightaway of 4 and 4, so I'll take my 8. And then I need to add my inside half circle, which this distance is 6, that tells me my radius is 3. So half of the circle. Half of 2 pi times 3. Half of 6 pi is 3 pi. On the outside now, I have a radius of 7 for my circle. So half of 2 pi times 7. So I'm going to add my 7 pi. Adding my pi's together, I get a total perimeter of 8 plus 10 pi. The length of an arc is 6 pi with a diameter of 15. If my diameter is 15, that means that the circumference of the circle is 15 pi. Wants to know the measure of an arc if its length is 6 pi. How much of the circle is it going around? It's not the whole circle because the whole circle is 15 pi. So what is the fraction? 6 pi over 15 pi. Tells me that I'm dealing with 2/5 of the circle. And I'm dealing with 2/5 of a total of 360 degrees, which gives me the measure of 144 degrees. Similar concept now, but we're talking about area of the sector. This tells us that because the circumference is 20 pi, that means my radius is 10, which means my area of the circle is 100 pi. If the sector is 30 pi, then I'm dealing with 30 pi out of a possible 100 pi, which means I am dealing with 3/10 of the circle. And again, 3/10 out of a possible 360 degrees, which tells me my measure is 108 degrees. Last example deals with something that is not necessarily a pi in it. So finding the radius if the circumference is 20. So I set the circumference, remembering circumference is equal to 2 pi r. So set 20 equal to 2 pi r. If I was finding the radius, I needed to divide both sides by 2 pi. I need to remember that when I type this into my calculator, that my r is equal to 20 divided by parentheses around my 2 pi, And that gives me a radius of about 3.183.